good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be, whatever time zone you might be in. This is English 309A, Classical to Enlightenment Rhetoric, and my name is Norm Klassen. I think what I want to do in this little mini video is simply to introduce the course and talk about the syllabus. Should just say that I am obviously recording this outside, and there's a little bit of work going on in the neighborhood today, so you might occasionally hear background noise that sounds to me a bit like someone is trimming branches, and I know that there's some work going on in the street, so I apologize for that, and hopefully it doesn't get too bad. If it does, I'll just have to kind of stop the video for a moment or two. So I'm a prof at St. Jerome's. I have been at St. Jerome's since 2006, and I teach, I specialize in the area of Chaucer, and I love language. I like to think about the history of language. I like to think about literary theory. I'm particularly interested in ideas about how we do history and how we think about art. My most recent book was the product of my last sabbatical. That was a book on Chaucer called The Fellowship of the Beatific Vision. And I'm supposed to be on sabbatical even as we speak. Some of you may know this, be aware of this, but with COVID, my wife and I decided that it was best to defer our sabbaticals because we like to be and to work in Europe. My last sabbatical I spent working in the British Library, and this sabbatical I would like to do the same. I was supposed to be teaching in at the end of June in a little summer school in the south of Spain. I know, rough, but of course with COVID that didn't happen. That's just been deferred for a year, so hopefully I'll be doing that next June. But a lot of that's going to depend on whether or not that we can come up with a vaccine, right? So that's a little bit about me. So let's talk about our circumstances. Let's talk a little bit about COVID, which just altogether sucks, but is the situation in which we find ourselves. When COVID hit in March, and most, if not all of you, will remember that we had to shut down classes, and it took a week to figure out how to finish the term, and then a couple of weeks to do that. My own approach was to curtail the kinds of assignments that were required, the amount of work that was required. I figured that we were all reeling, and it was just all a bit overwhelming. And my attitude hasn't changed. Obviously, we have migrated to remote learning, online platforms. We're learning how to use things like MS Teams and Bongo, and way more reliant on Learn. But I haven't set up my goal to become an expert in these things. I'm not trying to replicate the kinds of things that I try to do in the classroom and that I try to achieve in the classroom. I think that these are unique circumstances, they're time-limited circumstances, and I don't think that we should be trying to replicate what we would normally do. So I think this is a time when we all need to be gentle with ourselves, need to maybe lower our expectations about how we might perform, how we might be able to gather our resources, how we might be able to concentrate. I think that all of these things need to be taken into account. So that's my attitude going into this term, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be the whole academic year. I think that's how I want to approach things. I don't want to overcompensate for the circumstances that we find ourselves in. I want us to have a good experience, and I want us to be able to learn some important things, but there are definite limitations. Some of those limitations, as they affect sort of the teaching learning exchange for me, involve the fact that I can't see you, I'm not present with you, I can't read your body language, I can't go off of your facial gestures, you don't have the opportunity to interrupt me. There's going to be less of that spontaneous stuff that just can happen in the classroom or on the fly when one is lecturing. And so that's going to change the way that the information is conveyed, and to the way that the dynamic, which in a learning environment, I think is always live and fluid, how that dynamic is going to unfold. Again, it's just something that we're going to have to live with, and there are compensations. I can edit myself. I can stop and start again in the delivering of the lectures. And one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm not going to lecture all in one go. I'm going to divide my lectures up into mini lectures. And I'll generally, this one will go a little bit longer, but I generally want to try to keep those mini lectures to, say, 10, 15 minutes. And then, they'll be combined and they'll all be available together in one spot for any given week on Learn. So there are some upsides to this environment for sure. There's some interesting, cool things about the technology for sure. And we'll try to work with those as best we can. Okay. What else do I want to do in this little introduction? I want to talk about the course. I think I'll do that next. And then I want to walk you through the syllabus. And what else? Maybe just as part of walking through the syllabus, talk a little bit about the features of this asynchronous environment that we're in. So first off, to talk a little bit about the course. Let me ask you a couple of questions. And when I do this in this online environment, feel free to pause the video. And there'll be a couple times when I'll explicitly ask you to pause the video to actually take time and space to answer the question, so that the rhetorical question doesn't just, get lost. This is technology, right? It just keeps rolling. So you have to be a little proactive. And of course, you can ignore my suggestion that you pause the video. You could just keep going. How will I know? But one of the questions that I sometimes ask in this class is, why rhetoric? Why are you in rhetoric? And I guess implicit in that question is, like, why rhetoric not lit if you have divided between those two streams? And related to that, what is it that you love about rhetoric? What is it that you love about language? What is it that you love about your major? So that's one question that I'm kind of curious about, and hope that you are reflective about. And here's another question that I want to ask, and this is one I do want you to pause the video and to write a minute essay. Like, don't take more than a minute. Just take a very brief time, and just I think essentially write the first thing that comes to your mind. And I'm going to ask you to put this on a piece of paper and to be able to consult it later in the course. And the question is this: how would you describe language? I have in mind here what it is, how it works, what it's for. So take a minute and just jot down a little answer, all right? Okay, well, I'm not going to wait a whole minute, so I'm just going to keep going now. And I want to talk about sort of the context in which we approach a course like Classical to Enlightenment Rhetoric. Our ideas of language are influenced by technology and more generally by modernity, by the time period in which we live. Now, one of the features of technology is that it increasingly gives us a sense of control over our environment. And part of the condition of modernity, Max Weber said that we lived in a disenchanted world. The idea here is that we are disconnected. We have a feeling of disconnectedness from the world around us. Now, there are some features of this that we very much like. For one, we feel that we are protected from the world around us, perhaps even unassailable, masters of our own fate, controllers of our destiny, that sort of thing. Now, it's interesting that COVID pandemic, in theory, could be challenging this. It could be an opportunity for a reset that contributes to the questions that are asked as part of postmodernism, that movement that challenges who is it that we think we are. So COVID is very much challenging our sense of control, our sense of being protected and unassailable. But by and large, I think our response has been, trust the scientists. There will be a vaccine. We will get back to normal. Fine. For now, we're calling it a new normal. We think that there's, going to be some fundamental shifts, but really, I think we still think pretty much that we're in some kind of a control. We like the feeling that we can manipulate reality. We like the feeling that we can figure things out, that we can solve them, that we can make our circumstances better. We like science, particularly for what it does for us in the areas of health and medicine. Communication as well, being able to crunch numbers in a computer, that sort of thing. So we like that feeling of manipulation, even if our control isn't absolute. And we like or have concluded that meaning is something that we impose. And in this kind of an environment, rhetoric is understood as to be skill with language. Rhetoric is an example of our capacity to manipulate. And some of us are better at it than others. And the study of rhetoric or becoming a rhetorician means that you take it on yourself to get really good at this area because you want control in your environment and you realize that what you do with language is can give you a leg up in all kinds of situations. Part of what's going on in the period of the classical age through to the Enlightenment is that the situation is different, assumptions are different. It may be the case that we are fundamentally connected to reality, that we don't just impose meaning, that we receive it. That our lives have meaning and integrity and beauty already. So language in this environment might be a manifestation of givenness and of connectedness. Now this opens up beautiful possibilities, but it inherently means that we're more vulnerable, we're more exposed. I mean, if it's true that our situation is one of greater connectedness to the reality around us, then I think that this is a corollary. So this course is about the possibilities and the challenges that attend a pre-modern, that is to say, a pre-Enlightenment understanding of the real. And it is to say that there is a shift, a fundamental shift, as we move from that pre-modern period to modernity. We'll talk about the meaning of that word here and there, but roughly speaking, from the time when we get into the scientific revolution and then the Enlightenment. If you want a date to work with, Immanuel Kant wrote an essay in 1784 called "What is Enlightenment?" So it was a term that was already being bandied about. And he wrote a little essay to kind of summarize. And just briefly, he talked about what we've arrived at a time where humankind, needs to overcome its self-incurred immaturity. He used the phrase sapere aude, dare to think, that we think for ourselves, so that the pre-modern world is associated in his mind with childishness and naivety, and that the Enlightenment is about rationality, thinking for ourselves, standing on our own 2 feet. So this course is about the time period before that. It works with the idea of a fundamental shift in outlook, that we're in the modern and that it's actually very difficult for us to imagine what that pre-modern environment is like. And we're going to be spending our time working on that. So the possibilities and the challenges that attend the pre-modern. And to put that even more positively, this course invites you to imagine inhabiting language and viewing it more as a gift than as a tool. And I will bet you that a significant number of you, when you answered my question, what is language? That the word tool or the idea of an instrument, something that we use to communicate, to do whatever. But that idea, I think, was was probably, prominent in a number of your responses, and this course that's there. It's there from the sophists right from the very beginning, but there are other possibilities as well. Okay, I'm already at 20 minutes, and I want to walk you through the syllabus, and then we'll have this little introductory lecture. Okay, so I printed out a hard copy for myself here. There's a copy on Learn already. I've already talked about the course. My contact info, my email address is there. You can actually call me if you need to. The extension at work goes through to my Skype for Business that we have at the University of Waterloo. So you could actually call me if necessary. Really, not preferring that idea. I'm going to keep an office hour on Thursdays from 1 till 2. And what that means is I will send out a meeting invite either on MS Teams or on Bongo. And I'll simply be available on Thursdays from 1 to 2 if you want to ask a question. We'll see how that goes. I suppose I should say that probably that time will be recorded because, the situation here calls for asynchronous learning. And so if you can't be at that meeting, you still might want to have access to some of the answers that were given to some of the questions that were asked. If you want something more one-on-one, we can probably arrange that through email. I'm hoping that this can be like a pretty normal term in that sense that, you have a question, you fire off an email and I respond. But obviously we don't have that chance for the quick question before or after class and that kind of thing. I can't just be available 24/7. I mean, this could really, it could go that way, right? So that's one reason for the office hour. And again, hopefully email sorts out a lot of things. There are two required texts. One is this one, which is On the Trinity by Augustine. Its Latin title is De Trinitate, and sometimes I will use that phrase just because it's just so commonplace for people who are working in this area. And so I just use it as a shorthand without even thinking sometimes. So De Trinitate, On the Trinity. That's one book. You can get this in any version. There are old versions that are freely available online. You have to struggle a little bit with more dated language. These translations were done in the late 19th, early 20th century. If you're wanting an up-to-date one, there are other options as well. But this is a really good one. This is in the Cambridge Texts in the History of Philosophy series. And it's a really good edition. The translation is really good. The other book that I've asked you to get is not presently available in print. So what the bookstore has done is it has taken this book and it has made a course pack for this book, which isn't as elegant and as nice as finding if you can find this little book available online somewhere, AB Books or even Amazon, I guess. That would be great. The bookstore couldn't get enough copies for that, so they made there's this that's available. We don't need it for a number of weeks yet, so you have time to figure that out. It's also available digitally, which might be the best option, though I don't think it's any cheaper really than finding a hard copy. This is a lovely little book. We won't use all of it, but we'll use some of it, and so there's that. I'm asking you to do a few different things. I'm going to ask you to submit 2 journals on readings of Augustine that we're going to get to, not this week, but starting in the second week. And I'm also going to ask you to do online discussion groups. These are laid out in the syllabus, so I'm not going to say too much about that. I just I'll just emphasize that I don't want these to be overly burdensome to you. What I want you to do is to read Augustine, primary text from early in the 5th century. Very cool. And the idea when we're interacting with Augustine is not to try to argue with him or see if he proves his point. The idea is more to look at him rhetorically and see how he invites you into his argument and how he invites you into the world that he is imagining. That's what I want here. So just pick one little thing. I don't want you to go on and on about this. I just want you to, a journal entry, 300 words or one side of a piece of paper, handwritten, which is what I would do in class, right? You just hand them in at the beginning of class. And then what I would do in an ordinary class is I would talk about the other reading before the break, and then we take a break, and then after the break I'd get you guys to get into discussion groups and talk about the Augustine reading amongst yourselves. And so that's what I'm asking you to do by doing a little online chat. I've divided you into groups, just alphabetically, so the first 4 people and the second 4 people and so on. There are 31 people in the class, so one group has 3 members in it. And just want you to have a little exchange, and then at the end of that week, I will post my own reflections on that reading. So I want you to submit 2 journals before I post my own reflections. And ideally, I really want you to post your journal, hand in your journals or post your journals onto the onto Learn before you discuss them with your group. We're going to have, in an ordinary course, I would have an in-class test at the end of the first half, roughly week 6, I guess, week 6 or 7, something like that. And I'm going to do the same. So there will be a week when we just don't meet. And obviously you can write that essay whenever you want, but I want you to treat it as an in-class exercise. Just sit down all at once. I mean, you don't have to, but and just collect your thoughts over what's happened in the first half of the term, write it up, and then we'll do the same again at the end of the second half of the term. So in week 12, we'll just have a little test on the last week, and then you're going to give me an essay which will be due middle of December, something like that. And you'll notice that I've also got a little CERB, which is, exactly what it is now. For those people who have lost their jobs or can't find jobs, the Canadian Emergency Relief Benefit, I think that's what it stands for. Well, there's a little relief benefit in this course of 10%. This will allow me to just mark as I normally would, but there's a kind of a buffer built into the course that we're just not all of us working kind of up to speed. I think it's just not normal circumstances. We're a little distracted, and I'm trying to account for that in that way. So you're all already sitting at 10 out of 10 on this course. Hooray. You can see a schedule of readings. The readings for week 1 have already been up. So as I post this, I'm posting this notionally. I'll put this up now, but notionally I'll be putting this up, say, Monday at 6:30. It's as if this is the ordinary lecture. And having posted this, you haven't looked at this, then sometime after Monday, well, I'll be putting up the readings for week 2 and encourage you to get going with the Augustine and do the readings, etc., etc. And we'll just go week by week that way. I don't know if I have anything else more to say about that. I think it's all fairly clear. In week 2, I put up, I ask you to watch an hour-long video by a guy named Malcolm Guide, and it's a talk on Owen Barfield. And you'll see that it continues the theme that's already established in the first week's readings. And if we were on campus, it wouldn't be a big deal because it's just one thing that I'm asking you to watch online when the course is live and in person. This I do recognize that it's might be a little taxing because these lectures are online. Your whole life is online, so it's just another thing that's online. It's a really terrific talk, and it's the only reading in the course that I'm asking you to do online. So we'll get this out of our system, and hopefully it's you really enjoy it. Pay particular attention to the 20-minute to the 40-minute mark. It just says some great stuff there, and what it'll help you to do is to be thinking about that pre-modern modern split, which one book is called The Passage to Modernity. I'm doing a few readings from that book as well. That idea of the passage to modernity is very much a part of what's going on in this course, and we're looking at in rhetorical terms. Okay, what else do I want to say? I just talked about the journals and discussion groups, so kind of the mechanics of this course are in front of us. We sort of know what we have to deal with there. What else do I want to say about the mechanics? The course the assumption is that this is asynchronous, that you might be anywhere, that we can't all count on gathering online Mondays at 6:30. So, but I work with that as a notional time. I guess I think in terms of analogy rather than the digital. That I think is a virtue in this course for sure, and I'm going to try to convince you why that's the case. I don't have disdain for the digital, though. I reassure you about that. All right. What else do I want to say in terms of mechanics? I don't think that there's anything really that needs to be said at this time. If there is, I'm sure that you can put something up on Learn, and if not there, you can fire me an email if there's anything that's unclear. Okay, I think the noise kept to a relative minimum. I hope that you like the little scenery here in my backyard. I live in Hamilton, by the way. I guess I could have said that as part of my introduction. I hope that you guys all have a great term. My youngest son is in his last year of business school in Toronto, and I cannot imagine what it would be like or what it will be like for people to carry a 5-course load online. I wish you well. I wish us all well, and we look forward to getting a vaccine, don't we? All right, that's it for now. There are 3 little mini lectures that accompany this, and then a short conclusion. Okay, bye for now.